A lot was on my mind of that tragic story that happened 30 years ago up on top Cove Mountain here. It was a story where faint memories still existed. Walking up the mountain, just an awesome view here, Sherman Creek. Heading on up through to an old shelter in the AT. That's Dunn Canyon down below, and this is where the story begins. Farmlands, mountain country of Pennsylvania. See, back in September 1990, a story that's very relevant to me because I was in these mountains when this story was taking place, and it happened on this mountain, Cove Mountain here, and it's a sad story. I mean, there's two hikers. Their names were Jeffrey and Molly. Jeffrey's 26, Molly's 25 years old. They're just young people walking the trail, Appalachian. And they get up here and they spend this night in the shelter up here that we're heading to. They're in their bunk and they're fast asleep. And that's where it all began. So let's head on up the trail. Okay, so here we are, 9 miles back to Clark's Ferry, and we can see history if we keep on walking. Here's where the old shelter was down here. They since rebuilt it. It was called the Thelma Martin Shelter. Now heading down this trail leads to the shelter down in this hollow here, off the beaten path. Here we have a view of the new shelter. Rebuilt it with old timbers. Looks like from a barn. Well, I started looking around to see where the old shelter was, where they would have stayed. And I found this tree right here, the exact resemblance from the picture. And it was right over from the one they have now. Now I'm up here. Right here you can see the old tree from the picture. The Thelma Mark shelter where this all happened. And it was two people, and Jeffrey and Molly, and they came up in the evening, and there was a man, I won't mention his name. I don't like to have a notorious name on here, but they came here and they camped out that night, and he was one of them drifters, and they said he carried a large pack overloaded with stuff, and he came here probably early morning, late at night. They were sleeping. They had no, control over what could happen, and he shot him in the back of the head, and then he tied her up and took advantage of her, and later on murdered her also. And the story, I remember very clearly when I was younger. We came up, I was just 11 years old, and I was in the Royal Ranger program, and we had a planned hike, and we came through the Appalachian Trail right down from here, and the guy was still out. They hadn't found him, and it took 8 days to find him. So when we were on the hike, we had ranger leaders, and they would be out at night with watch. They kept guns on them, and so I remember it very clearly. I remember sleeping in a hammock, old net hammock, at night, looking out, wondering about where he was, because he was gone for 8 days, and finally they did catch up to him. They found him, and hood down over his head. He looked suspicious. Hikers normally didn't carry as much stuff as he did, so he got 2 life sentences, and now life moves on. But 30 years is a long time. Things change. This looks totally different here, but found the tree right there. History still remains, and the story still remains. And it's a shame. You walk these trails, and you gotta look out for yourself when you're out here. So years ago, 30 years ago, this story started in this town, Duncannon, and they were through hikers. They were coming from Maine down through, and they met the halfway point. They met their parents at this hiker town of Duncannon and got their groceries right here, probably at Mutsy Ball's grocery store. And it was a big story. Everybody talked about the Appalachian Trail killer, and I remember this all the way through school. So they get here, and they celebrate that they met together, that they're a new couple celebrating with their parents, and they head on out through, and they walk up this path here. It's Hawk View right here. They would have probably stopped here, take a break. There's writings they did at the different places, and just a young couple. And so they headed up through, would have got to the shelter in the evening, and the Appalachian Trail killer, that's what they called him, he would probably, people think they seen him. He had a small rucksack, and then he also carried a large marble bags, like gym bag, and he didn't look like he fit the part of a hiker. So story goes, he carried a .22 pistol with him and 50 bullets, and also he carried a double blade knife, probably around 7 inches long blade. And he told them, I guess they had him in court, so a lot of the time when he hiked, he would take cocaine with him and a bottle of Jim Beam, and that's how he hiked. He had a bad history. History goes back with violence, and it's a sad story. Sure is a nice day.